There is a single piece of steel whose physical life cycle tracks the rise, the ruin, and the eventual return of a civilization. This weapon was forged in the First Age by Telchar of Nogrod, a dwarven smith whose craft was said to be surpassed only by the greatest elven masters of history. Telchar engineered the blade to radiate the red heat of the sun and the cold brilliance of the moon. In Quenya, this property gave the sword its name, Narsil, or the red and white flame. Narsil became the primary heirloom of the House of Elros, the half-elven kings of Numenor. It passed through generations of the lords of Andúril until it reached Elendil, who carried it to Middle-earth following the drowning of his homeland. Because the House of Elros descended from both elves and the angelic powers of the West, the sword served as a tangible link to those higher origins. Holding Narsil was the visible sign of a king's right to rule. At the close of the Second Age, Elendil drew Narsil for the final time. During the War of the Last Alliance, he led a combined host of elves and men to the very gates of Mordor. On the slopes of Mount Doom, the High King faced Sauron in a duel that cost him his life. As Elendil fell, Narsil snapped beneath him, leaving the legendary blade in shards. His son, Isildur, seized the hilt shard and used the remaining jagged edge to cut the one ring from Sauron's hand, ending the Dark Lord's physical presence in Middle-earth. However, Isildur refused to destroy the ring. He claimed it as a weregild for his father's death, allowing Sauron's spirit to survive, while Isildur himself was later betrayed and killed by the ring at the Gladden Fields. With the High King dead and the sword shattered, the northern and southern kingdoms of men drifted apart. Narsil was no longer a tool of war, but a collection of fragments kept in the House of Elrond. For 3,000 years of the Third Age, the shards remained in Rivendell. They were a relic of a lost era, housed in a sanctuary while the world outside slowly forgot the line of kings. The blood of Elendil eventually narrowed down to one man, Aragorn, the last chieftain of the Dúnedain. He was an heir to a throne that no longer existed, living as a ranger in the wild. The shards were his only inheritance. They represented the exact moment his ancestors had failed to end the shadow, serving as a constant reminder of the potential for that same weakness to manifest in his own life. Fearing he would fall to the same corruption that claimed Isildur, Aragorn spent decades in exile. He chose the name Strider and the life of a wanderer, keeping his connection to the broken blade a secret. While the heir remained in the shadows and the sword remained in pieces, the kingdoms of men lacked a central authority to oppose the growing power in the east. As the War of the Ring began and the Nazgûl crossed the Anduin, the time for hesitation ended. Elrond concluded that if the world was to survive, the blade had to be made whole. The elven smiths of Rivendell took the fragments of Narsil and reforged them. They unified the steel, broken for 3 millennia, creating a hard, keen blade, free of any stain. Aragorn gave the restored weapon a new name, Andúril. In the Quenya tongue, this designated the sword as the Flame of the West. 7 stars were set between the symbols of the sun and the moon, surrounded by runes declaring its lineage. These engravings identified the blade as the Sword of Elendil, reborn to challenge the dark. When Aragorn finally drew the completed sword, it signaled the end of his long exile in the wild. He was no longer a ranger of the north, but a claimant to the throne of his ancestors. Aragorn took Andúril to the paths of the dead, entering a haunted mountain where no living man dared to go. He did not seek to fight the ghosts, but to command them. The army of the dead had broken their oath to Isildur and been cursed to wander the shadows. They recognized the reforged steel as the single object with the authority to demand their allegiance and hold them to their word. Seeing the blade that was broken, held by its rightful owner, the dead fulfilled their ancient promise. They followed Aragorn into battle, securing a path for the relief of Gondor. At the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, Aragorn stood on the docks of the Harland with Andúril in hand. His arrival broke the siege of Minas Tirith and announced to Sauron that the line of Elendil had returned to the world. The restoration of the blade facilitated the restoration of the reunited kingdom. The steel that began in a First Age forge ended its journey at the coronation of King Elisar, proving that even a shattered legacy can be redeemed and used to heal a fractured world.